The more offspring, the bigger Zinnia gets. It's a flyer.
Is that how it works? The more babies the stork delivers, the more powerful he gets.
Maybe it's the stork has
He's been lifting babies.
Lifting them,
He's been benching babies.
And then he swings the stick with the baby on it. That's +1 each for each one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes
He's
perfect
empowered
sense.
by all the babies around him.
Yeah, thank you, Zinnia, for delivering pain and babies.
This episode is brought to you by BOMBAS. Summer is here, so it's time to break out the BOMBAS. Made with premium, extra-long staple cotton, BOMBAS socks are the key to feeling light on your feet all summer long. They even have a 100% happiness guarantee. Plus, BOMBAS has a one-purchased, one-donated mission, so every time you buy a comfortable new pair of socks from BOMBAS, you're also donating essential clothing to someone facing homelessness. To date, they've donated over 100 million items and counting. So head over to bombas.com/commandzone and use code commandzone for 20% off your first purchase.
Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Command Zone podcast, your favorite podcast of all time. Today we are discovering who killed... No, I'm just kidding. My name is Jimmy Wong. Hello.
You've been listening to a lot of true crime podcasts.
True crime. What was the big one that got really, really popular? It was like right before the pandemic.
I always listen to Last Podcast on the Left.
Yeah, that one's great. There was another one that was all about this murder case. Whatever. We're getting off. What is your name?
Hi. I'm Rachel Weeks. I'm one of your hosts.
You are the person that did it. Actually, we're not talking about murder at all. We're talking about cute things today because
Cute
it's Bloomburrow
things.
time. Yay. And we're continuing with more precons, right, Rachel?
Absolutely. We are upgrading one of the 4 Bloomburrow precons. Today we're talking about Family Matters. It's a Jeskai Offspring deck, which is a new mechanic from Bloomburrow. It's a ton of fun. It's got a stork as the commander, which is perfect for an Offspring deck.
Look at his cute little funny hat.
We are going to talk about what comes in this box off the shelf and 10 cards to add to it to get your deck in fighting shape for your next game night using a budget of only $50.
Nice.
But if you want to pick up any of the sealed product or singles that we talk about in this episode, you can support the show by going to cardkingdom.com/command. Card Kingdom has a huge selection of singles, so when you're building a deck, you can buy all of them in one place.
Like the precon upgrade.
Like the Precon upgrade. Go add this to your cart, add the 10 singles to your cart. You know that they're going to have a huge selection of what you're looking for, and they'll ship it to you safely and professionally and timely, which I really appreciate. I know when I'm building a commander deck, I want everything coming in one package so that when it shows up, I get to start building and start playing right away. No more waiting on 5 or 6 envelopes to come at some point in the mail. Again, support the show and pick up some sweet cards over at cardkingdom.com/command.
And when those hot singles in your area do arrive at your household, make sure they're protected with ULTRAPRO, ultrapro.com/command. They've got an incredible selection of every single thing that you need to make your Magic collection get ready to be played, stored, collected, shown off, whatever it is, or even organized. ULTRAPRO.com/command has a huge inventory. They often have really great sales. And of course, they have the official license to use all of the cute art from Bloomburrow, Duskmourn, Modern Horizons, whatever set it is. If you're like, wow, I love the art this time, which a lot of people have said about Bloomburrow. Yep. You're going to want a play mat. You're going to want some sleeves, deck boxes, wall scrolls, you name it. ULTRAPRO has that. And it's best to get on the website when the stuff comes out because oftentimes, especially with a set like this, it's really popular. It might sell out. So make sure you go check out their newsletter, which always tells you about their new deals, or just support the show, ultrapro.com/command, to check out all that cool stuff.
The final place to support us is directly over at patreon.com/commandzone. All of our patrons get access to game nights, extra turns a day early without ads. They get cool perks like access to the Discord. So they can come ask questions, hang out with me, Josh, Jimmy, a lot of the members of the staff, talk about this new precon, how all of our patrons are building it, what they're doing, like what their upgrades look like. You can be a part of the Command Zone community over there, all by joining our Patreon. Plus, we shout out one lucky patron every single podcast episode, and this one is dedicated to Rachel Barrett.
Who chose that? It's random, but it just happens to be a Rachel.
There are Rachels in there.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm just saying, like, that's how convenient.
I know.
When's the Jimmy patron going to show
I'm sure
up?
we've done a Jimmy patron.
I don't think so, actually.
We've never done a Jimmy?
I think I would have remembered is the thing. I'm pretty sure we've had a Josh before, but you know what?
Jimmy, you also rock.
Thank you.
Don't worry, you rock too. And
I think
Jimmy's everywhere.
We're about like 650 episodes in at this point, and maybe 500 of them have patron shout-outs.
I wonder if there have ever been any duplicate patron shout-outs.
I'm sure there has been because our system is not great at check. And sometimes if you leave and then sign up again, you'll get right. So there's ways for sure to game this very necessarily gamed. I don't know. All right. Okay. Let's talk about the family matters. I love it says prepare for a special delivery.
Because he's a stork. He's delivering babies.
Yeah. Offspring. And he's a bard as well. So he's playing music.
So we're going to get to know this Precon as a thing that you just buy off the shelf, see what it's doing naturally before we do any of the upgrades. Remember, we're going to add 10 cards, take 10 cards out. But first, we're going to meet the face commander, the much-eluded stork.
Yeah, this is Zinnia, Valley's Voice. It's a Jeskai, so just blue, red, and white for a 1/3 bird bard.
Go birds.
Go birds. That's right. Actually, how fitting. So it's flying. Zinnia gets +X+0, where X is the number of other creatures you control with base power 1. So it also has the text, creature spells you cast have offspring 2. So you may pay an additional 2 generic mana as you cast a creature spell. If you do, when that creature enters, create a 1/1 token copy of it. So like a little baby. But it also adds to Zinnia, which will give Zinnia +1/X+0, where X is the number of other creatures with base power 1. So the more offspring, the bigger Zinnia gets. It's a flyer.
Is that how it works? The more babies the stork delivers, the more powerful
the more
he gets.
Maybe it's the stork has like...
He's been lifting babies.
Lifting them, yeah.
He's been benching babies.
And then he swings the stick with the baby on it. That's +1 each for each one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes
He's
perfect
empowered
sense.
by all the babies around him.
Yeah, thank you, Zinnia, for delivering pain and babies.
So Offspring's interesting. It's an additional casting cost, so you have to pay it as you cast the spell, but it doesn't trigger until the creature enters the battlefield.
Right. When that creature enters, you create a copy of it.
Yeah, so it's an additional casting cost that gives it the ability to ETB and make a duplicate baby.
It's kicker.
It's all kicker, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's kind of kickery.
So, I mean, if I was going to build a Zinnia deck from the ground up, I would expect to have a lot of cheap creatures, especially ones with ETBs, or maybe creatures that buff themselves naturally so that base power 1/1 isn't such a downside.
Yeah, I don't know if you're relying on Zinnia to be the big buff bird, right?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is like this power boost on Zinnia is nice, but it's not necessarily something that I would expect to be like +10/+0.
Right. The reason that you play Zinnia is really for the offspring too on your creature spells.
I would think so. And if you get Zinnia that big, if you're playing Zinnia more of as a token deck and you make a ton of 1/1 bodies,
right,
that's pretty sweet. And you have sort of a backup win condition in just hitting people with your giant buff stork. But I wouldn't anticipate that that's going to be the primary way, the primary engine of your deck. This offspring ability is so powerful.
Yeah, and the last thing you want to do too is make Zinnia so scary that they remove Zinnia instead of one of your many problematic creatures. Because you want to keep offspringing, and recasting Zinnia after a couple of kills is going to make it very difficult to get that. But if you're just building a ton of value into Jeskai with ETB already, then it seems pretty cool. But yeah, I would say reliance on the 1/1s makes it so much worse when Zinnia's not on the battlefield.
The backup commander for this deck is Arthur, Marigold Knight.
We went from the most fantastical name of Zinnia to Arthur.
Arthur. He's a little mouse knight, and he's riding on some sort of mythical twig horse. He is 5 mana, so 2 blue, red, white for a 4/5 mouse knight with haste. When Arthur and at least one other creature attack, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a creature from among them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Return that creature to its owner's hand at end of combat.
Ooh, okay. So it doesn't stick around, but you get a free ETB and swing of a Blightsteel Colossus.
Yeah. I mean, that's the interesting thing about Arthur is I do think they want completely different things from Zinnia. Like if I was building Arthur from scratch, I would pick big things with big ETBs, like super expensive creatures to get that free like sneak attack kind of effect.
And then some top deck manipulation with your brainstorms, then probably some flicker effects so that it doesn't have to return to your hand at the end of combat. There's displace, there's glossy flicker, all sorts of and white, you got ephemerate, all sorts of cool stuff.
That's what I would expect to see in the Arthur deck, where we talked about Zinnia as like cheaper creatures that you can pay that offspring cost easily.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want a Blightsteel Colossus and a baby Blightsteel Colossus. That's not useful to me.
Not so hot. It is cute though, the idea.
It is.
The art would be very fun.
Just a whittle Blightsteel.
Oh, I'm gonna swing at you with my 1/1 indestructible trample infect.
I love that he is indestructible trample and infect as a
1/1. Yeah.
Out of the womb.
Out the womb.
Yeah.
Or out the metal factory, whatever it comes from.
From the stork.
From the stork,
Fresh from the stork.
I would be so terrified if I was delivering a baby Blightsteel Colossus.
Yeah.
We got
Don't
a little hamster, a rat, and then a Blightsteel Colossus. Yeah, Arthur's definitely a very different build. And that's what we've seen with a lot of the precons is the secondary commander is the same colors, but in a different direction. But there are some overlaps.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is that they both really take advantage of ETBs.
Yeah, true that.
So Arthur's going to give you the blink and the cast on it, so you get additional ETBs. And Zinnia gives you 2 copies of that ETB right away.
Cool.
Which is pretty sweet.
And both commanders tie into preparing for a special delivery.
Yeah.
One comes off the top of your library, and the other one just has offspring.
I love the idea of this tiny mouse charging into battle and being like,
9/9.
and then it's just like Jinga Texas.
Yeah. That's terrifying.
So those are the face commanders of the deck. You get an idea for what might be in this box. We're going to talk about the notable reprints, which is all the reprints that are worth over $5 at time of recording. Remember, we record this before the decks are spoiled, so these prices will go down, but they give you an idea for the kind of value that you're getting as a reprint.
And there are 5 of them in this deck.
Yeah, just 5, which is like pretty good, but less than what we've been expecting lately.
Sure.
Still, there are some cool reprints here.
And some new art, notably.
The first one is Luminous Broodmoth, which is currently sitting at $14.
Woo!
This goes along with our reuse ETB themes.
Yeah, this is great. Whenever a creature you control without flying dies, it comes back to the battlefield with a flying counter on it.
Pretty sweet.
Pretty sweet. If you can remove that flying counter, it can do it again and again. Kind of reminds me of actually some of the Dustmourn cards because they're coming back as enchantments, but it's a great card.
Yeah, Luminous Broodmoth is awesome and is good board protection for a deck that is committing a lot of creatures to the board.
Yeah.
The second one is Helm of the Host, sitting at $13.50. Again, this looks like we're going with more copies along with Zinnia. So if one baby is good, how about 2, 3, 4 babies?
Sure. You don't get the offspring because you're not casting it when Helm of the Host copies it, but these are obviously a great way to get multiple ETBs.
I like this one a lot. It's Curiosity Crafter, sitting at $9.50.
Whoa, no way.
I know. It's really crept up over the years. Curiosity Crafter is 3 and a blue for a bird wizard. Says you have no maximum hand size, and whenever a creature token you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card.
Those are your offspring.
This is a great creature to offspring because you get a baby owl that triggers him right away.
Also, the art is very, very fitting for this set. It's an owl and a cute little lynx or a cat or something.
And then when that baby hits, you're going to draw 2 cards.
Yeah, that's great. Next up, Curiosity Crafter at $9.50. Next one's at $5.50. It's Combat Celebrant. So this is a creature that when it exerts, you get more combat phases, basically. It's a 3-mana 4/1.
Picture a baby Combat Celebrant.
2 of them.
Go Dad!
Go Dad! Yeah, that's pretty sweet. This card is obviously very powerful and was recently reprinted as well, as you were mentioning before the show. And then the last card on the list here with brand new art.
It's so cute.
So actually, I wouldn't be surprised if this one actually keeps a higher price because of it. It's rapid hybridization. It's got what looks to be a lizard of sorts. A frog lizard, actually. I'm so silly.
Yeah.
Of course. But it is got new art as well as new flavor text that's all themed around Bloomburrow. So very, very cute. And that was at $5.
Yeah. Rapid hybridization has crept up over the years as well. Glad to see this reprint. They sort of ping pong back between rapid hybridization and Pongify. One is always
Pongify back and forth.
One is always expensive and the other one's always cheap. And then they switch and then they switch.
Hilarious.
So hopefully the reprint helps out a little bit with that price tag because that is, of course, a staple in our format.
Yeah. Very cool. So the total reprint value of all the cards added up in the deck is $106.75.
This is pretty low.
Yeah. Now, of course, the decks we're pre-ordering for about $45-ish, and it does not take into the value the new cards, the 10 new cards, including the main set card, and then the basic lands, of course.
Yeah, so there's only 76 cards included in that price. To get a better idea for what that feels like, if you bought this Precon at $45 off the shelf, you'll get $2.37 of reprints for your $1 cash. So that number is below average and well below average compared to last year. Our average reprint value was $123.75.
So like $20 more.
We're about $20 under what our average was last year, and that bang for your buck value is about 30 cents lower than what we are used to from last year's $2.60. This is the lowest reprint value out of all of the Bloomburrow Precons. So keep that in mind when you're picking it up, but there are some very sweet new cards in here, including Zinnia himself.
Yeah, Zinnia's great, and we'll talk about some of the new cards in this episode as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Moving right along. Those are the financial breakdowns of the deck, but it's time to break down the mechanical
stats. Mechanical stats. Mech stats. M stats. M-stats. Okay. We got ramp, card draw, interaction, all that good stuff. So there are 11 sources of ramp in this deck, which is good. I would actually want more because Jeskai doesn't contain green, so your options for ramp are more artifact-based.
And you are paying more for all of your creatures. So I do think the deck is going to be a little bit more mana hungry than it looks.
Totally.
There are 11 pieces of draw, which is about normal. As long as you're squeezing all of the value out of all of your creatures, I think the 11 pieces of card draw is probably acceptable.
Right, because you'll have ETB card draw and stuff as well. There are 11 sources of card interaction. So removal, bounce, all that. Not necessarily just straight get rid of stuff, because you're in blue, so there's going to be some sort of bounce in here.
Yeah, there's a variety of interaction that this deck offers. This is all targeted, though, so it deals with 1 to 3 things. There are a lot of board wipes in this deck, though. There are 5.
Whoa!
Which is extremely high for a creature-based deck.
Yeah.
And some of those are more synergistic than others, but none of them are one-sided, which is interesting.
Which is weird because you would think Fell the Mighty. There's so many options.
There's a lot for the in white, and there's a lot for like when your deck is full of little guys.
Yeah.
So I was a little surprised at the inclusions that are in this deck naturally, but the 5 board wipes is higher than what we're used to.
Okay.
Then 38 lands, 13 of which are basic.
Nice.
Right, perfect.
Okay, yeah. So that's really solid overall. A little probably high on the wipes and maybe a little low on the ramp, but we'll see what the deck looks like when we get a little bit more into it. Let's talk about the specific cards to this deck. So there are 10 cards that have base power 1 out the gate.
Just
so that
naturally. Yeah.
Natty 1. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. I shouldn't invoke too much of that in my life.
They're just little babies.
Yeah, I don't ever want to roll a Natty 1, but in this case, there are a lot of natural power 1 creatures in the deck, just 10. But this next one is really where the juice is.
There are 18 creatures with enter the battlefield effects, or in Bloomburrow, enters effects.
Enters, that's right.
So those are just creatures when they come in, they do something right away, which is great with Offspring, and it makes sense with both Zinnia and Arthur. So that really gives you an idea for what this deck is trying to do.
And then there are 14 cards that make tokens of some sort. So you'd assume some of those are base power 1 tokens. Some of them could also just be non-creatures. But yeah, 14, that's a pretty high number as well. So it seems like they care about making tokens in this deck, especially as we saw with Curiosity Crafter earlier.
It makes me think that the deck is a little bit more focused on that first ability of Zinnia to really get a lot of 1/1 bodies on the board to make Zinnia a big, powerful bird, which is interesting. I don't know if that's the direction that I would go naturally with Zinnia, but it's good to know that is clearly something they're considering in this.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say also because it's a Precon, new environment, killing someone with Zinnia by hitting them a couple of times is a much easier play pattern for someone that's picking a deck up for the first time.
Right. And the final category is 2 pump effects. These are could be anthems, could be an overrun style. They're just things that make all your little guys bigger.
Okay.
Remember, Zinnia only cares about the base power. So it doesn't matter if you put counters on it. It doesn't matter if you pump it by some other way, equip it. As long as it is base power 1, which means the number on the card is 1, it'll buff Zinnia.
Ah, that is very good to know. Okay.
So that's what the deck looks like when you break it down from a bird's eye view. But let's zoom in a little bit and talk about some of the best cards that come out of the box.
And 2 out of the 3 best cards you chose are Brand new cards.
Brand new cards. This first one is awesome. I think we're going to see a lot of it.
This first one is Offspring. Mm-hmm. Okay. 1 in a red for a 1/3. It's Agate Instigator. It's a lizard rogue. Is it? It's definitely firing a little bit of a slingshot action. It's very cute. It's got Offspring for 1 in a red, so you can pay an additional 1 in a red as you cast it, and when it enters, you create a token copy. And it says, whenever another creature you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. So very, very powerful type of ability in general.
It's a double impact tremor.
Double impact tremors, and when you Offspring it, they will both see each other, right? Or no, enters and then creates a copy. So the first one copy you create will see.
We'll see the second one.
The Offspring.
Yes. So it'll deal 1 damage right away, and then any creature after that will deal 2 damage as long as you hang on to both your lizard and his son.
His son, yeah. And the idea is that he's firing a little slingshot.
Yeah. Pink. It's each opponent, right?
Yeah, each opponent.
Yeah.
So those types of effects, again, add up very, very quickly. And that's a great way to close out the game as well.
So what I want to remember this card because there's some stuff that we're going to be adding that's really, really powerful with this. And I do think the deck naturally wants to win with non-combat damage. It's going to be more likely to deal with like big ETBs that deal damage when they come in or a lot of little ETBs like this and impact tremors. And this one is perfect for what the deck is trying to do naturally.
Yeah, I love that.
This next one is one of my favorite cards in Bloomburrow. It's Pollywog Prodigy.
Wow.
1 in a blue for a 1/3 frog wizard with Evolve. So whenever a creature you control enters, if that creature has greater power or toughness than this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So he's a 1/3. If you play a 2/3, he gets a counter on him. Then it says, whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell with mana value less than Pollywog Prodigy's power, draw a card.
Whoa.
Yeah. So if you can get Pollywog Prodigy onto the board and follow it up with basically any creature, anytime your opponents cast a 1-drop, you draw a card.
Yeah. If you can get a couple of counters on this thing.
Now we're talking Mystic Remora, Rhystic Study level of draws, especially if that Pollywog Prodigy has a little brother.
Oh, wow.
You're going to be drawing 2 cards anytime an opponent casts a non-creature spell with that low mana value.
I would say 1 it depends on your play group, but once you get to 2 or 3, especially when you get to 3, you're going to draw a lot off of this kind of card.
And I'm curious to see what the reaction is of opponents when they see this card come down.
Probably very little, I would say.
I agree. I feel like it's going to be kind of innocuous until it's drawing you a ton of cards, and then they're going to start asking questions about what card is doing that.
What is happening?
What is doing that?
It's a prodigy, so...
He's really good at being a wizard for such a young frog.
Yeah, and especially for the frog progeny.
Giving him an
Prodigy progeny, wow, let's go.
Giving him an offspring feels wrong. Because he's a prodigy.
He's a prodigy, yeah.
He's a young father.
Can there be 2 prodigies in the room? I don't know. Very cool.
So that card's also new. I'm very excited about that one.
Yeah, Caroline Gariba, great job on the art.
Mm-hmm. It's so cute.
It's so cute. All right, the last best card in the deck is Rose Room Treasurer, which is a reprint. This is 3 in red for a 4/3 Ogre Warrior. Has the ability, whenever another creature you control enters, create a treasure token if this is the first or second time this ability is resolved this turn. Otherwise, you may pay X, and when you do, Rose Room does X damage to any target. So when you create an offspring of the creature, you're instantly going to get 2 treasures each time. And then if you have another time that happens, you can start paying mana to have Rose Room just start planking stuff.
Start shooting.
Bloop.
Again, non-combat damage here I think is going to be sweet. But also, like, every time you cast a creature with offspring, you get the mana to cast another creature with offspring as long as you and you could get a baby Rose Room Treasurer. Maybe it's Bring Your Son to Work Day.
Wow, 2 Rose Room Treasurers on the battlefield, and then any offspring creates 4 treasures.
I mean, it feels like it's going to get out of control really fast.
Yeah, even just 1 Rose Room Treasure is good because this card is normally not so great in other decks that can't create more than 1 creature a turn reliably. So having offspring on everything makes this very, very powerful, I think.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. And what I like about it is normally your opponents will look at that and be like, get that thing off the board, and they'll kill it. But when you have offspring and you have 2 of them, it's so much more inconvenient to kill 2 offspring treasurers that I feel like most commander players will be like, well, there's no use killing one. They're already going to have the other one.
Yeah.
So they might as well have 2, and I'm going to save my removal spell for whatever the payoff is for these treasures. So Offspring sort of insulates your plan.
Yeah, because no one wants to waste single turret removal on something that's copied.
Exactly.
As 2 of them already out there, yeah. What are you really doing?
Yeah, it feels like an uphill battle.
Yeah.
So I like Rose Room Treasure a lot. It also gives you a place to use all of that mana that he and his child will be making.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about the upgrade goals for this deck, Rachel. What are you trying to do here?
So I like Zinnia as the commander of this deck. We've been talking about it a lot. I think Offspring is a really powerful mechanic, especially in Commander, especially when you can apply it to any creature. And I think there's more changes that I would make to the deck if I was going to put Arthur in the command zone.
Agreed.
So out of the box, I think this deck is very high on value and engines and game actions, but it has a really difficult time just closing the game. It has some sort of weird win cons for it. Like I think Combat Celebrant is sort of confusing for a deck that it wants to make little creatures.
Right.
Combat Celebrant is best in like stompy decks that naturally have big creatures with attack abilities.
Yeah.
But these are all ETB creatures, value creatures. They're not going to be very good in battle.
It seems like it wants to say Combat Celebrant means like get your commander to an 11/11 and then kill them with commander damage 1 turn. But that's very narrow compared to what the deck can be doing here, I think.
I agree. It like that kind of thing just seems a little off the path of what I think the deck really, really wants to do. So we're going to add some more threats, make it more capable of closing out a game. Some of the cards in this deck that you're expected to copy are very expensive. They have 5 mana ETB creatures that you're like, I'm not going to pay 7 mana for this. That's just not a thing I can really afford to do, especially in Jeskai with ramp being on the low side. So we're going to try and lower the curve of those ETB creatures and make sure that you are capable of actually casting them on curve. This deck really, really wants like blink spells or populate effects or some ways to like continue to use those ETBs after the Offspring cost has been paid.
Yep.
So I think we're going to up that number as well. That also does a very good job of upping the threat in the deck. So the more populate you have, the more explosive your deck is, the more able it is to close out the game. And I really like 3-drops specifically in this deck because it's a really, really strong curve. There's a lot of 2-mana ramp in the deck naturally. So playing ramp on 2, playing your commander on 3, and being able to cast a 3-drop with Offspring on turn 4.
Because you'll have 5 mana at that point.
Because you have 5 mana then is really powerful and gets your deck off to the races right away. So I wanted some setup creatures at 3 mana that are really good to Offspring.
Yeah, I really like that because often it's very difficult to think like, oh, it's a 3-mana commander with 3 colors in it. Very hard to play mana rocks in a way that lets you get it up on turn 2 and expensive monetarily. So this is great because it already has that built-in ability to on turn 4 do the thing you want to do and use all your mana to do so.
Yeah, it just feels like such a strong curve. So I really want to make sure we have all the 3-drops that we want and we have all the 2-mana rocks that we want, which I think the deck does have naturally enough to 2-mana ramp.
Great. Well, I'm very excited to see what cards we're going to add and what cards we're going to take out. But before we get to that, let's hear a bit from our mid-roll sponsors and see what they got cooking for you, viewer.
Citizens of Dominaria, I, Urza, Lord High Artificer, am here to unveil the pinnacle of technology, a true modern marvel. Presenting the new and improved best-selling everyday earbuds from RAYCON. Beyond their top-tier audio quality, these RAYCONs feature active noise cancellation, ergonomic design, and multi-point connectivity to pair with 2 devices at once. It's like how I paired with the Mightstone and the Weakstone, but instead of causing a ruinous blast, you can blast your favorite tunes. I use my RAYCONs every day to drone out the drones while I'm constructing my constructs. And for those of you who can't give your artifacts tap abilities, RAYCONs come with simple tap functions built in. But the best part is, you can get them without paying the cost of other premium brands. They even come in a variety of colors, including the only one that matters, blue. Deal with it.
Go to buyraycon.com/command today to get 20 to 40% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get up to 40% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/command. That's buyraycon.com/command. Hail, unchanging one! We are Omo, Queen of Asuva. You have arrived just in time to witness our royal decree. For today, we officially declare this the Summer of BOMBAS. You see, BOMBAS socks and summer essentials are so comfortable we wear them everywhere, for everything, which is ideal since we are in fact both everywhere and everything. They have something for all types. Moisture-wicking athletic socks for spelunking in caves or climbing mountains, waterproof slides for relaxing on islands or lounging in lairs, and 100% Pima cotton tees for whatever it is you do at a locus. What's more, for every oh-so-comfy item you buy, BOMBAS donates a clothing item to someone who truly needs it. So even if you're not blessed with my people's ability to change shape, you can still make a small difference in changing lives.
Ready to get comfy and give back? Head over to bombas.com/commandzone and use code commandzone for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/commandzone and use code commandzone at checkout. You browsing for some new tech?
Yeah, I'm building T-Mount and ARCHIDEKT. Ooh, how about Zergo and Ojutai?
Did you just drag and drop that card image directly into your deck?
Yep, with ARCHIDEKT, you can drag and drop card images from EDH Rec or Scryfall directly into the deck list. No typing required.
That is so cool.
Ooh, okay, check this out. I'm gonna drag and drop Dragon Storm into the deck, and then boom, I'm gonna drop a bunch of dragons on the battlefield.
A 9-drop, huh? Seems ambitious.
It was just for the pun. ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/commandzone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/commandzone.
Welcome back, everybody. We are upgrading the Family Matters Precon from Bloomburrow. It is Jeskai, it's a bird, and we've got some very cool additions to this deck. Predictably, when I'm doing the upgrade, they are all creatures. Every single one of them that we're adding to the deck. We've already talked about the upgrade goals, but the first thing I wanted to add was a little bit of ramp and a little bit of interaction all in one package.
Ooh.
And this card is Scheming Fence. Do you know this one?
Fence? Is that a type of bird I've never heard about?
So Jamie used this card against me, and it was backbreaking. It is a 2/3 human citizen for a white and a blue.
Okay.
And it says, as Scheming Fence enters the battlefield, you may choose a non-land permanent. Activated abilities of the chosen permanent can't be activated.
Oh.
Scheming Fence has all of the activated abilities of the chosen permanent except for loyalty abilities. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate those abilities.
Okay, so it strips away something else's activated abilities and gives it to itself, except for planeswalker abilities.
So it'll turn off the activated abilities of a planeswalker. It just doesn't gain those abilities.
Them, yeah, but it can turn off Mana Rocks.
Mana Rocks is the big one that I have here. So 2 Scheming Fences says, like, I'm going to set you back a mana, I'm going to set you back a mana, and I'm up 2.
Yeah, I get an Arcane Signet and a Soul Ring on my 2 Scheming Fences. Can't tap this turn, but very good for the next.
Yeah, and it doesn't, like, it's very easy to interact with, but it also is just like goes with what the deck wants to do, slows down your opponents a little bit for your more dirtily decks, and just sets. It doesn't have to be like turn off some broken card. It can be 2 signets.
Yeah. Even just 1 signet on turn 2, if you draw this instead of a 2 Mana Rock,
is amazing.
Yeah, because now you can stop someone else from just accelerating. Mm-hmm. And it feels so bad to kill a Scheming Fence.
It's so brutal. He did this to my Ornithopter. Jamie did. My Ornithopter of Paradise. And I was just like, okay, my hand is significantly worse now.
Wow.
I did not plan to like not have this.
Yeah. You always assume your Mana Rocks are safe, right?
Yeah. And they're not from the Scheming Fence.
Wow, this must be an expensive card being so powerful.
Not at all. It's only 50 cents.
Oh, wowee.
It's from New Capenna, which means
Regular
I love it.
set.
Yeah, this next one is also from New Capenna. This is also from the regular set. I wanted to buff the draw a little bit because we're committing a lot of creatures to the board, so making sure that we always have a full hand so we don't get blown out by a board wipe was very important to me. And again, that 3 mana slot is so strong. Yeah. So I wanted to add Rumor Gatherer to this list.
I love this card.
So it's 1 white for an elf wizard. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, draw a card instead.
Okay, so the second time you draw a card, but every other time you're scrying 1, and having 2 of these out in the battlefield is pretty sick nasty, is the
pretty
say.
Sick nasty. This is a perfect one to follow up with Zinnia. So 2 mana rock, 3 mana Zinnia, and then on turn 4, Rumor Gatherer with a baby.
Yeah.
So you're scrying right away when the baby enters, and then you're set up for anything offspring. Next turn, you'll draw 2 cards.
Yeah, nothing you've done so far has made me go, I got to interact with Rachel and stop what's happening.
Yeah,
so
a little bit of value. and it's just kind of cool.
Yeah. I love that.
This one's only 25 cents as well.
All right, next up, we have another version of card draw. It's Welcoming Vampire. This vampire flew over the Bloomburrow and was like, welcome, whoa, a lot of animals. Well, I've turned into one. It's 2 and a white for a 2/3 vampire flying. Whenever one or more creatures with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Triggers only once each turn. So this is just consistent card draw every time you offspring, as well as cards like Rumor Gatherer and Scheming Fence will automatically trigger it as well. It seems like there's a lot of creatures with 2 power or less already on the list.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you make an offspring, you draw. And if you offspring this card, now anytime you make an offspring, you draw 2 cards.
Yeah, I like that.
I like this curve very much.
And creating 2 of those, oh my gosh.
This next category I called baby value.
Oh, so not value because of the babies coming in.
Get some value from your babies.
From your babies.
And it's Delny, Streetwise Lookout. This card's very powerful.
So good.
You can't offspring it because it is legendary, but it is well worth it. It's 2 and a white for a human scout. Creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. On flavor, we love it.
Very cool.
If an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time.
Oh, baby value.
Baby value.
Okay, so you're going to get a lot of ETBs, especially because the copies are 1/1s. So that's guaranteed to hit down these things. And also a lot of them just are 2/1s already.
Yeah.
So everything we've had so far, Rumor Gatherer, Welcoming Vampire, are all going to be affected by Downing just out the gate.
Welcoming Vampire will not be. It's a bit of a non-buff because it only triggers once each turn.
Oh, I see. So the trigger won't be able to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the cool thing about Delny is if the creature that you cast with offspring naturally has power 2 or less, you'll make 2 babies.
Oh.
So if you have
because
a
offspring
Delny,
is an ability that's added to the creature.
it's an ETB trigger, like we talked about at the beginning. So offspring's an additional cast, but when it enters the battlefield,
you make a token. So that's a trigger of it when it ETBs.
Right. So Delny will see that and be like, "You're a little guy. Here's 2 babies."
Yeah, that seems like it's automatically the best card in the deck now.
It's really, really powerful. And then not to mention, like, you make 2 of them and you double the ETBs or you double whatever triggered abilities they have.
Yeah, that's super good.
Yeah. Delny is a little bit on the spendier side. It's $17, but is going to be extremely powerful when you have it in play.
Yeah, and this card is obviously good and powerful. This deck, that it carries the price tag for a reason.
Yeah.
Next up, for more baby value, it's Soul Herder, which is kind of cute. It's kind of on flavor there. It's 1 a white and a blue for a 1/1 creature spirit. Whenever a creature is exiled from the battlefield, you put a 1/1 counter on Soul Herder. And then at the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So every single one of your non-token copies can get bounced out, come back in, re-ETB, and then Soul Herder just grows and grows and grows.
And if you have 2 of them, you're getting just a huge amount of value out of this one card.
That's awesome.
I didn't want to add a ton of instants and sorcery blink spells, but Soul Herder does so much for the deck that it means that once your engine is online, you're going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, you're flying at that point.
Soul Herder is only $2.
Nice.
Pretty good. Now it's time to make some more babies. This is the populate section. Anytime you're making token copies of a real creature, populate becomes exponentially more powerful.
Right.
Because it represents an entire card. Where normally when you populate just like a 1/1 soldier token, that represents like a little less than a card, right?
Yeah,
it's like a third of a card. But if you're populating a copy of Muldrifter, for example, that represents a full magic card. So populate essentially draws you cards.
Yeah, I like that.
And this first one I think is really sweet in the deck. And it works with some of the cards that are naturally in there already. It's Oltek Matter Weaver. It's 2 and a white for a human artificer. Whenever you cast a creature spell, choose 1. Either make a 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature token, or create a token that's a copy of target artifact token you control.
Okay.
Now, you don't have a ton of artifact creatures in this deck, but there are a number of them, and we're going to add 2 more.
Okay.
But the deck naturally has a couple of like a Solemn Simulacrum style cards.
I see.
That are, if you can make token copies of them anytime you cast a creature, it's going to be extremely powerful.
Yeah.
But it also just spits out gnomes.
Yeah, tons of little 1/1s that you can also copy with Oltek.
So now you've got a real army of 1/1s coming through, and that's going to buff up Zinnia for this Voltron commander damage type win if we need to do it that way.
Yeah, and just creating a bunch of 1/1s is very, very powerful, especially if you have a copy of Ultec Matter Weaver. Then 2/1/1s for every creature spell you cast. You're never going to get hit on the ground again, unless there's trample.
Ultec Matter Weaver, only $3.
Yeah, and I've lost to that card a lot of times in Limited. Okay, moving on. We got...
Let's not talk about it.
Yeah, Kaith, Famed Mechanist. Very cool. So this is 1 blue, red, and a white from Modern Horizons. It's a 3/3 with Fabricate 1. So when it enters, you can put a 1/1 counter on it, or you can create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. You're likely going to make a low token. And it says other non-token creatures you control have Fabricate 1. So every single time the creature enters the battlefield, you get to either put a 1/1 counter on it or make a servo. So that's very good. It includes the offspring as well. And that's really good as well with, what is it? Polywog Prodigy. Because
extra counters on it.
Comes in already as a 2/4. Yeah, it's great. And then Kaith has more abilities. You can pay 2 mana and tap Kaith to choose one. Either Populate, which means choose a token you control, make another copy of it, or Proliferate, which is every single token, every single counter that you have on you, you can add one more of. Bloop, bloop, bloop.
So this deck is mostly going to use the make a token, make a servo, and populate sides of Kaith, but there are certainly upsides for the counter side as well. This is just doing a lot of what the deck wants. It makes more 1/1s. It copies your creatures.
Yeah, it says everything.
Like, she is exactly in the realm of what Zinnia wants to do. And imagine, like, if you've offspringed a Welcoming Vampire, and you populate, make another Welcoming Vampire, draw 2 cards. You populate, you make another Welcoming Vampire, you draw 3 cards. Like, you can see how much value you can generate out of one card that you've committed to the battlefield. And I think that's what this deck really wants to do, is play one thing, offspring it, and then squeeze all the value out of it that you can possibly get. And this next card is going to help you do that as well.
Oh, yeah.
It is busted in populate decks. You know it. You love it. It's Nesting Dovehawk.
This card rocks.
3 and a white for a bird with flying. It's a 2/2. It says at the beginning of combat on your turn, populate. Whenever a creature token enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1 counter on Nesting Dovehawk.
Sweet. So it just gets huge by itself, but 2 copies of Nesting Dovehawk on the battlefield, you're double populating all of your offspring.
You can populate your Nesting Dovehawk.
Oh, gosh.
And then if you cast Nesting Dovehawk with offspring, 2 Nesting Dovehawks, counters on one of them immediately.
Yeah.
And then on both of them immediately. I think the token sees itself.
Yeah, it does.
And then you can populate the Nesting Dovehawk twice, and then you can populate anything 4 times. It snowballs out of control incredibly fast, and they're flying threats.
Yeah.
There was a game of... No, it was Game Nights where you had 2 Nesting Dovehawks and were populating Nesting Dovehawks, and that's exactly the kind of power that this can have.
Made everyone want to kill me.
You did. And we did.
Yeah, I don't know if the copy sees the 1/1 counter, but either way.
Whenever a creature token enters the battlefield under your control.
Because it hits the battlefield, does it see itself?
I think so.
Judge, tell me.
I think so.
Chat, tell me.
We'll fight about it later.
Not fighting because I'm going to die.
I love this as a threat. I love this as a value engine. Nesting Dovehawk's perfect for the
Yeah, it's one of the best cards. Especially because of it's just recurable, continual populate, which again, offspring decks love it.
Yeah, Kaith was only $1 Nesting Dovehawk, a little spendier at $9.50.
Cool.
But again, very, very powerful.
Okay.
Finally, this deck needs some zip. It needs some kick.
Kill 'em.
It needs some firepower.
How do I win?
And we already mentioned that the best card in the deck is this, one of the best cards is this Impact Tremors thing that makes a copy. I think the deck needs more of those effects, especially if they're on creatures, because it's extremely powerful with populate effects.
Right.
So if you start populating like this lizard with Impact Tremors, then you're doing more and more and more damage every single time you make a copy of it. Like if you have 2 or 3 Nesting Dovehawks, and this lizard...
You can do like 8, 9, 10 damage a turn or whatever to people.
Yeah, to each opponent. Yeah. And you don't even have to attack with your flyers. So I wanted to add Molten Gatekeeper, which is another MH3 card. This is 2 and a red for a golem with Unearth. It says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Molten Gatekeeper deals 1 damage to each opponent.
Cool. And it has Unearth. So in the graveyard, this is kind of how you win the game, I feel like. Is just out of nowhere, you can unearth this thing. You have maybe your little lizards that are dealing damage, and then you just do a lot of shenanigans and just bloop, 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 3 damage each time from a Molten Gatekeeper and 2 copies of that that card. That's nuts.
Yeah, I think this is exactly how the deck wants to win. I think the combat stuff is a little delicate when you're putting so many tiny things into play. You can, peck in for some bird damage, but I think largely this is the plan. This is also really busted with Old-Tech Matterweaver.
Oh,
so this is one of the artifacts that I wanted to add, especially if, you have to make the token copy of it with your commander first. But
yeah, also very good with Delny, because Delny will again double it up
that
just
too.
By itself. So.
Only 25 cents for a Molten Gatekeeper.
Nice. And the last card here we have is the Illustrious Wanderer Glyph. 4 and a white for a 2/2 artifact creature golem. So also good with the Ultimate Matterweaver. Yeah, if you copy it. It has Ascend, so if you have 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing. So pretty likely in most games of Commander. It says other artifact creatures you control get +2/+2 as long as you have the City's Blessing. And at the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature token. So just by itself, it's sitting there pumping it out. If you make 2 of them, it's pumping out 2 1/1s every single upkeep.
And everything gets +4/+4.
Yeah, the moment you basically have 1 turn cycle with this, you're going to create, even just with 1 of these out, you'll make 4 other 1/1s. So you're going to have the City's Blessing almost guaranteed if this survives the turn cycle, and probably by the time you cast it anyway.
Yeah.
So now all your 1/1s are 3/3s. This is...
Well, they're 4/4s if you have 2 of them.
That's right. They're 4/4s if you have 2.
No, 5/5s, excuse me.
Yeah, they both get +2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a win condition. This is literally just a win condition by itself.
Exactly. I wanted to add some threats that if you cast it, it's just a huge problem right away.
Yeah.
And you don't have to assemble this huge engine where it's like, I have a thing that populates and a thing that ETBs. And this is
and they have to get rid of both if they want to get rid of the real problem.
If it's on the battlefield, you have a huge mess to clean up, which I think is really powerful.
I'm all about it.
Love an Illustrious Wanderer Glyph. It's $11 to add to this deck. That brings our total budget upgrade to $46.25.
Hey.
If that's a little high for you, cut out, one of the $10 ones, but they're too good to cut out all the other ones.
Yeah, they're all very good.
Yeah, cut out the water glyph, I guess. But I think a real pro for Zinnia is that you can cast really powerful cards and just have 2 of them. They don't have to be great ETBs. A Fairy Mastermind that you have 2 of
just is
busted. Yeah. And now they can't just remove 1 Fairy Mastermind and the problem is gone. They have 2 Fairy Masterminds to deal with.
Yep, that's like
and
Welcoming
one's
Vampire.
A baby Mastermind?
Baby Mastermind.
So there's a lot of gas in behind Zinnia. We've added 10 cards, which means we have to cut 10 cards. Always the hardest thing to do in Commander.
Well, explain to me why you're doing this to your babies.
I know. We've already explained a couple of them, but the first one's Combat Celebrant. I just don't think that's what you're doing, and it's the kind of card that waves a red flag and says something scary this way comes.
Well, you also don't have haste on it, so you play it, and everyone goes like, excuse me?
Yes.
Extra combat? I don't know.
Yeah, it's much better in haste decks.
Yeah. And I would say, honestly, you can make 2 of them and all that, but that's really just making everyone go, oh, we have to kill you right now because we don't know what you're going to do next turn, but obviously you're setting up for it. And again, like you said earlier, this is not necessarily a combat deck. There's other ways it wins, and I like it. And this card also probably goes great in another one of your decks anyway.
That's the thing. It's a great reprint. You can take the Combat Celebrant and put it somewhere else.
Yeah, celebrate it somewhere else.
This next one is Cloud Blazer. It's 5 mana. It enters and draws. You gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. It's too expensive to get an offspring of. Paying 7 mana to draw 4 cards and gain 4 life is just too expensive.
Yep.
We put in some much cheaper threats that are going to draw you much more cards faster.
Mm-hmm.
Up next is Boss's Chauffeur.
New Cabana.
The New Cabana Commander. Alas, I have to cut it. This enters with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to 1 plus the number of other creatures you control. Whenever another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on the Chauffeur, and when he dies, you make a ton of citizens. It's equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on it.
Okay. But it's a 5 mana card that by itself, with nothing else on board, is a 1/1.
Yeah. So I get the joke here is that the offspring comes in with a ton of counters as well. So you have 2 threats.
Right.
But the thing is, you have to be way ahead on board already for them to be super scary threats. You have no way to functionally sacrifice these, and it's 5 mana to do it. It just feels win more, and we can make a better threat.
Yeah, I agree. 5 mana is a lot. And we add a couple of 5 mana cards too that are just better, I think.
Yes, I agree.
Next up, we have Illusory Ambusher. It's a fun one. It's a 4 in the blue for a 4/1 with flash. When it's dealt damage, you draw that many cards. So this is your classic classic, you're looking at your binder and you go like, oh man, I'm seeing the dream scenario of this happening. And then you play with Illusory Ambusher, and I've played with this card for like 7 years now, and it never works the way you want it to.
Yeah, this is a gotcha card that never really gets them. Even when it's time that your opponent is going to deal a ton of damage to you and give you a ton of cards, they usually have trample or flying, or like they're not going to get blocked by this cat. If they have trample, they assign 1 damage to it, you draw 1 card, and that's it.
It's also weird because your deck is creating 1/1s and 2/2s and all these other like tiny little guys and stuff. So the Illusory Ambusher, it's not like opponents are just like, oh, Rachel's got 1 creature, she can't really block right now, I'm going to hit you with my 6/6.
Yeah.
That's when the Illusory Ambusher really comes into play. It's like, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, she's not going to block anyway. Okay, let's swing in a bigger thing. But now it's like, why am I swinging the big thing until I have trample? She's
it can just get chumped.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't fit the play pattern of this deck at all. It's a super cool card. I would play it in decks that have fewer, a smaller board state, like you said, that are easier to attack and are just holding their mana open more naturally. We're committing creatures to the board, largely at sorcery speed. If your opponent's holding up 5 mana, you're like, well, they have something.
Well, technically 7, because the idea is that you want to copy it. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a little funky in this deck.
Put Illusory Ambusher in forced combat decks, Precon, that sort of stuff, where you can at least control that flow of it. But in this, it's similar to Boss's Chauffeur, where it's like, is this thing ever even going to die? Am I ever going to really get the 1/1s? I don't know. No one's swinging at me because I have all these chump blockers. Yeah.
We're going to cut some board wipes.
Because there are
2
5.
of them specifically. There's way too many. One of them is Martial Coup. This is create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. I get the flexibility here. It's either a board wipe or it makes tokens. I just don't think this is how this deck wants to make tokens.
A 7 mana board wipe, notably.
Yes, and it blows up all your stuff and it leaves you with 5
all
1/1s.
other creatures. So
Well, what are you going to do with 5 1/1s?
I don't know. You can't offspring them, that's for sure.
It's good with like your Impact Tremors style stuff, but I just don't think you need 5 board wipes, and this is overcosted.
Yeah.
The next one is Time Wipe. It's return a creature you control to its owner's hand, then destroy all other creatures. It's so sad to like save the stork and blow up all the babies, first of all. Extremely sad. But it's just a 5 mana symmetrical board wipe, basically, that I don't think the deck needs.
Not great. Next up is Helm of the Host. Why are we cutting Helm of the Host?
It's too expensive and too scary. And
you need 9 mana to get it going once, and everyone's going to go, nope, not going to let that happen.
Helm of the Host is still one of the cards that people react to the biggest and does the least for you.
Yeah, there's so many ways to interact with it, right?
Like, it's not... Helm of the Host is cool if you're like copying your commander or Italis or like powerful stuff and have free equips. This deck would have to pay the whole 5 mana for the equip and would copy like a Muldrifter. You know, it's just too scary for what it's going to give you in this deck.
Put this in the Legendary Matters deck. Put this in a deck that can play it and equip at the same turn.
Clone deck is cool. Equipment decks. Yeah. The next one is Junkwinder. This is 5 blue with affinity 4 tokens. Whenever a token you control enters, tap target non-land permanent and opponent controls. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step.
Kind of like a stun counter, yeah.
It stuns them, yeah. Junkwinder I like in a deck that is reliably going to have 5 tokens. So this costs blue, and you're making 3 tokens a turn guaranteed. But the way this deck makes tokens is pretty expensive, and it's pretty slow. Even with the populate stuff that we added, that's only 3 cards. So you're not going to have a turn where you have this explosive, you make 10 tokens, tap all their stuff down, attack.
Yeah.
That the card is really best. And in a slow, grindy deck that makes like 1 or 2 tokens a turn, this is just going to feel annoying and it's just going to get you killed.
I feel that. All right, next up we got Murmuration. This is an enchantment 4 and a white. It's a new card. Birds you control get +1/+1 and then Vigilance. At the beginning of your end step, for each spell you've cast this turn, create a 1/2 blue bird creature token with flying named Stormcrow.
Pretty sweet.
Your Stormcrows are 2/3s. They have Vigilance. Your commander's a bird. It gets +1/+1 on the Vigilance. Doesn't affect the base power, notably. Mm-hmm. But you are trying to storm off in this deck. In the Murmuration deck, it seems.
Yeah, it's a very cool card in a deck that's designed to cast a ton of spells. We're paying more for each of our spells. We're casting fewer spells naturally and trying to take advantage of single spells that we cast.
Yeah.
So it just feels like a bad fit for the deck, especially on a 5 mana enchantment.
I feel that.
The final one we are cutting is Plume Creed Escort.
Oh no!
This is from
some random menu popped up on the computer. Here we go.
This is from the main set. and it just flashes in and gives target creature hexproof until end of turn.
It's a 2-mana, 2/1 flyer. So it doesn't add to the power of your commander. It's just another bird that's from the main set with beautiful art, but
it is
doesn't really synergize here, huh?
I just think it's not quite impactful enough. You don't really need to offspring it, and it doesn't add much.
Yeah.
So that is the upgrade. We've added 10 cards. We've taken 10 cards out. We're going to post this whole upgrade onto our ARCHIDEKT page. You can go check out the link, see it with the upgrade, and goldfish it with the new cards added and some of the other cards taken out. Tell us what you think. The link for that will be in the show notes.
Yeah, you can check it out on the ARCHIDEKT. Okay, so let's talk about the deck itself, Rachel. Now that's on ARCHIDEKT, you can use the awesome playtester function.
That's the best.
See how it plays. So how does this deck play out?
We've talked about the beginning curve of the deck. I think that's going to be a huge boon to it. Is 2-mana rock, 3-mana commander, 3-mana setup creature with offspring. So you're going to set up a card draw engine right away. You're going to set up a little bit of like scry value type stuff. And then you're going then you start to set up like an engine piece. I think you want to commit like 3 cards to the board, honestly. And it's like your commander, this setup piece, and then something
offspring
that populates or some kind of payoff.
Yeah, so by turn 5, you're really starting to go.
Right. So you assemble your engine, it starts looking kind of slow, and then suddenly your opponents look over and you have 10 cards in your hand and a bunch of flyers. And they didn't know that was going to happen. But again, I think you're really trying to squeeze a ton of value out of these creatures. I don't think you want to dump your whole hand and like cast a creature with offspring until you're really trying to pop off and win the game, take over the skies. It's a grindy creature deck in Jeskai, which is really interesting. Especially like if you have one strong value engine like a Kaith or the Nesting Dovehawk or something like that. That's your nesting engine. That's your engine. That's your plan. Just commit to the one thing and let that churn value out. So then if there's a board wipe or if somebody answers that, you can follow it up with another engine and get going right away.
Yeah.
You just want to stick one big threat and that'll take over the game. That's your Illustrious Wanderglyphs. That's your Nesting Dovehawks. That's like, those are going to be the things that close out the game and your opponents are going to struggle to interact with it because...
You got to. Yeah, I like that. Okay, cool. Yeah, don't get too scary. Jeskai creatures matter. Definitely a different way to take on Jeskai, so that's exciting.
Yeah, I think this deck is really sweet. And when I was doing the upgrade, like I look at Zinnia and was like, that's kind of fun. What a cute little like joke. But the more I did the upgrade and the more I thought about what cards are cool to copy and how you can just sort of make a ton of copies of one cool creature.
Right.
It feels like it's a very neat deck to play. But have your dry erase tokens handy.
Get them ready. Yeah, it's definitely a token-heavy deck. All right, to the listeners, what do you think about the Family Matters Precon? Are you more excited for Zinnia, or maybe you're going to go for the Arthur build? Are there any cards that Rachel missed? Any cards that you think that were screaming in your head, and you were going to cardkingdom.com/command to check on them to make sure that we hadn't missed it? Yeah, let us know in the comments. And of course, if there's any cards that we suggest that we take out that you disagree with, we always love to hear it. And there's some things that you agree with as well. Now that all the precons are out as well, let us know what you think about the precons, which ones you might be picking up, because you can head on over to cardkingdom.com/command. That's our affiliate link, and you can buy all of the precons from them, as well as you can follow the upgrade guides that either we're doing or some other channel is doing, and get all the cards at once. There's also a great way to bring new players into the game, because I know a lot of people are very interested in Bloomburrow. So the 4 precons in that precon environment is a great first step to just getting people to play in Commander, especially if they have a little bit of Magic experience. Cardkingdom.com/command. Get all the cards you need in one convenient package delivered right to your doorstep and ready to play.
And once those cards are in your hand, you're going to need to protect them, organize them, make them look sweet. Go to ULTRAPRO.com for all of the highest quality Magic accessories. If you're into Bloomburrow, they've got playmats and sleeves and binders and everything that you need to show off your Bloomburrow spirit. I know this set has already gotten a lot of people interested in Magic, starting to peek in the door. If you have friends, family, partners who are starting to look at Magic because of Bloomburrow, get them a cute playmat maybe. Get them a cool binder and be like, well, welcome. There's cool, cute cards here too. It's not just Pokemon. But if you play Pokemon and all that other stuff, Ultra Pro's got your back there too. Go check out the Mana 8 series. They've got the super clean white playmats with the giant mana symbols on them. They're great for getting signed by artists or getting signed by your favorite creators, or just keeping it clean, looking sharp, and representing your favorite color. Again, go to ultrapro.com/command.
I just noticed that you have the Ultra Pro playmat for...
I do. It's Zinnia.
Zinnia, yeah.
Check
we'll
it
cut
out.
Back. Look at that.
Bam. He's got the little bard hat and the lute.
So cute. The art is slightly different than the one on the box. He's got like a cool necktie here that's a little different on this art. And then it feels like there's like a few different arts,
different Zinnias for sure.
Cool.
They did for Bloomburrow, they did different style arts for a couple of different of the commanders. We didn't mention it, but the commander is full art foil and the backup is extended frame. Yeah, full the whole thing.
Very nice.
It's very fun. Okay,
cool.
Let's go to the end step, talk about something outside the world of Magic. Do you have anything you're doing outside of Magic?
What?
I know. I'm the same way. I've got one if you don't.
Yeah. I was gonna say, please. go for it.
We've been watching Marshall's channel, not his Magic channel.
Oh, his watch fixing channel.
It's Wristwatch Revival.
Yeah, Marshall Sutcliffe.
Revival.
If you watch any Pro Tour coverage or Magic coverage or listen to Limited Resources, Marshall is the guy with the voice.
Marshall. So this is, tangential to the world of Magic. But if you haven't watched Wristwatch Revival, it's a ton of fun. It's his YouTube channel where he fixes old, sometimes expensive, but sometimes just like sentimental watches.
Yeah.
And he walks you through the whole process, and he talks about the parts, and he zooms really far into the watch. And it is the most zen channel.
It's nice.
It's such a nice thing to have on in the background or like watch with your coffee on the weekends, because it's just like, it's Marshall talking about watches and you learn a little bit about history.
He's got a great voice too for it. So
he does such an amazing job with this channel. My favorite thing about it is that he doesn't brush over like mistakes. He's like, I did this and it didn't work and I took it all apart and we put it all back together again and I found out it was this. So you sort of go through this journey with Marshall as he learns more about watches, and like he talks about a spring shoots off across the room and he has to go around his whole like workshop with a vacuum with like pantyhose over it to get the spring. And you're like, you could absolutely not have included that. But the fact that he's like, it happens. It's part of this whole process. And if you're mechanically minded or you just like seeing, pretty things shot well and hearing somebody talk about something they love, Wristwatch Revival is really fun. Like, I don't care about watches. I don't have any watches.
Yeah.
And we love watching it at my house.
I love watching Revival stuff. Like, we found a thing from the 70s that's all rusted up. We're going to make it look brand new again.
It's so satisfying.
Like, wow, that's so cool. Yeah. And, Marshall is the reason that the Command Zone, one of the major reasons that the Command Zone podcast even exists, by the way. I actually saw him gift a watch to Riley at one of the MagicCons recently, and it was just this beautiful, sweet, tender moment where Riley gets to put on this cool new watch that Marshall himself has refurbished. It had sentimental value. It was great. So it has real impacts on the Magic community as well. So big shout out. We'll, of course, include that link in the show notes below.
Check it out.
All right, big thanks to our amazing team here at the Command Zone. We got Damon Lenz, Eric Lem, Gaurav Galati, Jordan Pridgeon, Jamie Block, Manson Long, Josh Murphy, Jake Boss, Sam Waldo, Evan Lemberger, Katie Cole, Mitch Trafford, and how's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai. That's going to do it for this Bloomburrow upgrade. We're doing all of them upgraded. So if you want to check those out, make sure you subscribe to the channel and listen to all those podcasts or watch them. And we'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @JoshLeeQuai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.